This podcast serves Middle Tennessee every weekday morning, and it's made possible by member support. Learn how you can make a difference at WPLN.org/support.
This is the Nashvillager Podcast. It's November 4th, 2025. On this day in 1879, a man named Thomas Elkins was granted a U.S. patent for a technology that transformed one of the most basic aspects of living. And I don't say that lightly. You use it. But it kind of seems like the use that has become the most ubiquitous for his technology is one that he maybe thought of as secondary. He invented the condenser coils that are at the heart of most refrigerating systems. They're used in your fridge. They're used in AC units. But one look at Elkins' prototype device and his resume, and it's pretty clear he was thinking about their use in morgues. Elkins was a remarkable man. He was one of the first black pharmacists in the United States. That career started in the first half of the 19th century, but he just kept picking up more education, becoming a dentist and then a surgeon as well. You can only imagine how useful his skills must have been to the black community around him, since so many white doctors and dentists were uninterested in caring for non-white patients. Elkins helped operate what was called one of the best-run stops on the Underground Railroad. He was out in the community raising money to assist people who had escaped slavery. And then he served during the Civil War as the medical examiner for 2 Union regiments. That man dealt with a lot of dead bodies. He knew better than anyone how valuable it would be to have some means of keeping them from decaying too fast. Valuable for examination, but also valuable for returning a body to the family for burial when the person died away from home. His prototype device, which is in the Smithsonian's collection, looks like a ceramic casket nestled inside a larger box with a water-based condenser coil system to keep the temperature low. I mean, the model's not to scale, but the proportions speak volumes. And yes, his coils do help us store dead bodies for as long as necessary now. But he also made a tremendous difference in our ability to feed hungry people. Thanks to refrigeration at every step of the supply chain, those coils keep meat and produce fresh and safe, even when they're being delivered to people who live at a distance from the farms that produce that food. That is, if people are able to buy it. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee with historical context from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. There are few issues as fundamental and perpetual throughout humanity as the need to assuage people's hunger. It pops up again and again in religious texts. In the biblical book of Ruth, farmers following the Hebrew laws make a point of leaving some crops in the field for the poor to come behind and glean after the bulk of the harvest is gathered up and taken to market. In the Quran, Muslims are told that feeding the hungry is essential to acting out their faith. One of the most recognizable markers of Sikh congregations are the community kitchens where they feed meals to anyone. And the Gospels describe Jesus as spending much of his time among the poor and needy, making sure their physical needs are met, and preaching that whatever is done for those considered the least by the rest of society is one of the best ways to serve him. But of course, manipulating hunger is as old as time, too. Ancient history is often told as a series of conquests and famines, but even the conquests quite often involved the winner cutting the loser off from food until they gave up the fight. That's what all those medieval sieges were really about, too. And for a student of history, it's hard not to think of both of those threads as the fight over SNAP benefits or food stamps plays out right now. The manipulation definitely seems to be there. In places like Tennessee, where Republicans are in power, there seems to be very little political will to find a way to fill in the gaps and make sure the most impoverished people in our communities can eat. The messaging that gets repeated over and over again is that Democrats could end the federal shutdown if they wanted to. But those comments generally leave out the reason Democrats are in a standoff is that they're holding out for another matter that is vital to the well-being of almost the same community as the people who get SNAP, access to affordable health care. The difference between the political gamesmanship at play now and the sieges from centuries ago are that back then, the rulers holed up in the castles that were under attack were also going hungry along with their people. This time, no matter which way it goes, it's only people with limited income who will truly pay a price. And whether through increased health care premiums or the lack of help to pay for food, one way or another, many of the people who already live paycheck to paycheck just to cover essentials are probably in a state of having to figure out which of those essentials to do without. When I was in high school, I worked a couple of summers in the kitchen of my church camp. And every summer, a church in Nashville that did outreach to a low-income community would rent out the camp and bus in kids from that neighborhood. I was a sheltered, middle-class teenager from the rural edge of a suburb. This was one of my first direct interactions with poverty. And I'll never forget the surprise on some of those children's faces when they found out they could get seconds at their meals. Or more heartbreakingly, the kids who stuck their head in the kitchen to say thank you because they'd never had more than one meal a day in the summer before. Or the kids who cried on the last day of camp because they knew they weren't going to eat like that again when they went home. When you look around Tennessee now, you'll see lots of church groups and community organizations trying to mobilize the best they can to get food to kids like that, to the people who need it most, until SNAP is back up and running. But even when everything is working normally and there's no government shutdown, those grassroots efforts are stretched thin just trying to help provide the assistance that's needed after SNAP delivers benefits to 700,000 Tennesseans. For every meal that a food bank provides in Tennessee, SNAP provides roughly 8 more. So, as we heard in yesterday's newscast from the director of Second Harvest Food Bank, they don't have the capacity to cover all of the need that there is in this state. But I guess until something gets worked out on the federal level, that's the main mechanism that we have, right? And it will take all of us as individuals to figure out how and where we can help out so that this political siege doesn't rack up too much collateral damage. In just a few minutes, a new album from a musical gearhead. That's coming up after the newscast.
Nashville Public Radio is always here to keep you informed, whether it's the latest news or music you should check out. Every week, What Where Wednesdays shares the latest happenings taking place right here in Nashville by talking to members of our community, putting on events in your neighborhood and beyond. So tune in to What Were Wednesdays every Wednesday, and you can always find events at WNXP.org/events.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. Middle Point Landfill, Tennessee's largest landfill by volume, received 7 violations from the state this year related to litter and liquid runoff. The city that houses the landfill, Murfreesboro, also issued violations for air and water pollution. But WPLN's Caroline Eggers reports that other cities have not been complaining, and that includes Nashville.
Middle Point set up shop in Murfreesboro nearly 4 decades ago. About a third of Tennessee sends trash there. It's been convenient for a lot of cities, just not for the people living near it. The city of Murfreesboro just reported its 4,000th complaint of odor in 4 years. But what about Nashville? Even if the landfill can stay open past 2030, Republic Services General Manager Mike Klassen said the landfill
cannot be the place where Nashville disposes most of its trash.
That was back in February. And Nashville hasn't come up with a backup plan, at least publicly. Mayor Freddie O'Connell's office said the city will begin to explore alternatives to manage its trash next year. It sounds likely that the city will largely continue to rely on landfills, just probably not Middle Point. Caroline Eggers, WPLN News.
Tennessee may start allowing non-lawyers to own law firms. It's not permitted in most of the U.S. That's because the American Bar Association wants to ensure that lawyers are professionally independent and loyal to their clients. But the state Supreme Court is worried about a short supply of legal services. Court officials say they want to make sure all Tennesseans have access to affordable services. Bloomberg News reports that if the rules are changed, it would create rare access to law firms for investors and corporations. Each state sets its own legal ethics standards. If this changes, Tennessee would join Arizona and Utah in relaxing their rules. The Tennessee Supreme Court wants to hear from other legal organizations before making a decision. Kids in Nashville might see a change in the times they start and end the school day. WPLN's Camelia Burris reports that city leaders are in the early stages of researching the pros and cons of changing school hours.
Metro Nashville Public Schools is working with Mayor Freddie O'Connell and the Board of Education to review school hours to determine how effective they are. They're considering factors like the well-being of students and their families and how to make transportation more efficient. No decisions have been made. However, Phase 1 of the review process will allow families, students, staff, and community members to voice their opinions via district-wide surveys, focus groups, and both virtual and in-person town halls. MNPS will then publish a summary of these responses. This winter, they will provide potential schedule options and ask for more feedback. MNPS says there is no one-size-fits-all answer. They want to create options that reflect the diverse needs of Nashville residents. The final phase will take place in early 2026, with MNPS presenting their findings to the Board of Education and outlining the next steps. WPLN News, Camelia Burris.
Metro Police want drivers to lock their cars. A growing number of firearms are being stolen from parked cars, especially in urban areas, almost 3 times as much as a decade ago. Metro Police report that this year, 836 guns were stolen from vehicles in Nashville, 16 just last week. Research from the FBI shows that cars parked at residences are a common source of stolen guns and most often used in crimes. Yesterday marked the beginning of a new era for Nashville's food scene. The restaurants Bastion, Locust, and the Catbird Seat became the first eateries in the city ever to receive a Michelin star. Last night, Bastion held a watch party for the awards ceremony, and the crowd was more than ready to cheer on all the local winners. In addition to the spots that were awarded Michelin stars, nearly 20 Middle Tennessee restaurants were recognized. It's all part of the prestigious Michelin Guide's new expansion into 5 southern states. Previously, the only city in the region that the guide covered was Atlanta. You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. Nashville is full of music gearheads, but in Taylor Wofford's hometown of Havelock, North Carolina, musicians didn't come through town. They definitely didn't hang out analyzing pedal boards. When she moved here, she found a community and a sound by tapping a guitar pedal. Music reporter Justin Barney met her on Dickerson Pike.
We meet in the parking lot of Eastside Music Supply, the famed music gear shop. 8 years ago, Taylor Wofford walked through these doors. She just kind of never left.
I just hung out long enough. They finally gave me a job.
Yeah, I couldn't get her to leave.
And thus begins my love affair with pedals and amps and, freaky guitars and all that kind of fun stuff.
Her artist name is Bloodroot. This is from her song SK1. The synthesizer that she is jamming on in the lyrics of that song is the Casio SK1, an introductory keyboard that they started making in 1985 that Wofford held during our interview.
There we go.
She grew up, like a lot of Nashville musicians, forced to play piano, but she was drawn to the darkness of the guitar.
I really applaud people who can make a whole career out of acoustic guitar on the stage, one person singing. I think that's awesome. I got really bored with it, and I wanted to push it further. So then comes in effects and, weird stuff, soundscaping.
Her album Turn, which is out today, is largely about grief and grief processing. I'm always interested in how musicians emote through sound. Like, how do you make something sound like grief?
Pedals are a huge part of my sound. My board has maybe anywhere from 11 to 13 pedals on there at a time, and I really try to use most of them.
The album is focused on delay, modulation, and a little bit of fuzz. And the soundscapes really make the record. But she has a warning. If you are thinking or aspiring to become a gearhead, it will take some of the mystery out of music.
Once you start getting into gear and effects, the veil is torn. but I like knowing. I'm having fun.
And that's why the lyrics are important in this album, too. They're the center. The last couple of years have been hard for Wofford.
It's been kind of a doozy.
A beloved dog died, a young cat died, and her grandpa, who she looked up to very much, passed away.
I always pictured him as such a strong man, you know, like that's your grandfather, like that's a pillar of your family. But he was always so soft-spoken. He never raised his voice. He never got really agitated with any of us. I miss him.
But in SK1 and a lot of this album, through the darkness of the pedal-heavy soundscape, there is hope. Justin Barney from Nashville Public Radio.
Bloodroot's album Turn is out now. Thanks for listening to the Nashvillager podcast. We take this look at Nashville news every weekday. If you like it, go ahead and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and tell a friend or give us a mention on your socials. It really helps get the word out. And of course, everything at WPLN News is listener supported. You can become a member at WPLN.org. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one. And we'll catch back up tomorrow.